Okay. Last couple people have kind of joined in here, and we'll get started so we don't consume everyone's time too much. First, I'd like to welcome you to this call. My name's Jason Jacobs, and I work for Wonderware Canada East in Ontario. There's a bunch of people, a bunch of sales guys also from the Quebec area that are on the call as well, and hopefully you know your individual sales rep. Today we're going to focus on the presentation in front of you. Obviously, you know it's Dream Reports. We're going to focus a little bit on the 4.7 new release that just came out just recently. Some of the focuses that we're going to be talking about are everything from compliance, triggering on events, web connections, multiple data sources, and things like that. I personally gone through a short training, 2-day training with this, and I found it a very easy program to learn. Dream Reports is one of our endorsed partners, which means that they're very connected at the hip. So when we release things, they release things in conjunction with our releases. So I think that's really important. One of the biggest things about Dream Reports and why we're presenting this as Wonderware Canada East is it really fits in well with our historian platforms and solutions. So Dream Reports is really just the engine that we use to basically take the data that's in our historians and tell a story to the people that need to know that and go from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through this presentation from Richard Kay, who works for Dream Reports. What we ask you to do is if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And if we get to the end, if we can get through a couple questions, that's great. If we don't get to your question in the chat, what we will do is we'll obviously record those and get back to you, or you can simply just contact your Wonderware Canada East sales executive. If you're in Ontario, that would be me. Edward, Bruno, Mark, Eves are the other candidates that you may be dealing with. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Richard Kay. He'll be taking the presentation from this point on. But I want to thank you for your business, and thanks for your time again. Okay, Richard, you're up.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Jason. Jason, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
And if you can hear Richard.
Yeah.
Great.
Can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm going to
okay,
mute everybody just so I don't get any crosstalk. Thank you.
The conference has been muted. La conférence a été mise en mode discrétion.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jason, for that introduction. As Jason mentioned, the next hour or so we'll be focusing on Dream Report, which is a Wonderware endorsed partner product. And the way I like to think of why Dream Report is important for you, for industrial process automation customers, is that you probably find that you're data rich but information poor. You've got probably have a lot of products collecting data, for the operators, historizing it for compliance, for data analysis. But the challenge is always to make some sense of that data, to take it from the data level to the information level. And Dream Report really helps you address that. It's a tool to help you maximize your return on investment in all of your Wonderware data-centric products, such as Historian, AppServer, InTouch, as well as any other data source that you have in your plants. So, as I said, today's focus is on Dream Report, the new version, 4.7. We're going to highlight a lot of the new themes and features, but I would like to kick off with a couple of slides just introducing Dream Report to those of you who are not familiar with it. So, let's get started. The Dream Report is a reporting solution built from the ground up for industrial and process automation. It's not a business tool that's been kind of force-fit into the automation world. It truly is designed from the ground up to understand the data sources that you have in your plants, such as HMIs, PLCs, SCADA systems. It understands how to connect to your process historian. So not only just how to connect to it, but really to expose all of the power of your Wonderware historian or any other high volume, high speed data repositories that you have in your plants. And then of course connectivity to other databases, because invariably you want to relate data from maybe lab systems or maintenance management with your historian and bring it all together in your reports. It's an easy-to-use product, and I think the reason for the quick learning curve is that it's not a programming tool. It truly is a configuration tool set, a lot of point and click, fill in the blank kind of wizards. So you really don't have to be a software developer. Really, our target market is the plant HMI developer, the plant user. We don't require IT resources. And it scales very nicely. You could have a small system out there, maybe not even an HMI, just a PLC, Dream Report going directly to it, collecting data, generating reports, to a complete plant-wide reporting solution with lots of different data sources, different people wanting the data in different formats, automatically sending them the reports through email, interacting through a web browser. So it really does fit your needs or meet your needs as a complete reporting solution, not just a product. So let's see how it works and what it does. So it's, again, using my analogy of feeling a lot and looking a lot like an HMI, say, such as InTouch. Just as with InTouch, when you create a new project, the first thing you do is you set up your connections to your data sources, whatever those data sources might be. In Dream Report, you create a project, you connect to either an external data source where the data has already been logged, such as your Wonderware historian or a CSV file or just some generic database. Or a real-time data source. So if the data is not yet logged, maybe you don't have a historian and you have a handful of tags that you want Dream Report to connect to, log them into the internal Dream Report data logger, and then report on it, that's fine as well. Of course, Dream Report's not intended to be a historian, but for smaller systems, maybe where there isn't a historian, we can take care of the data logging as well as the reporting. Then you spend all your time in the configuration environment, configuring and building up and assembling your reports. For each report, you tell Dream Report how you want it to be generated. Is it a scheduled report? So for instance, it might be a daily report or a monthly treatment report. So that kicks off at midnight on the 1st of every month. Or it could be event-based. So one of the benefits of being able to talk directly to your HMIs, to InTouch, to App Server, is we can use that connection to trigger reports. So let's say it's a batch report. We might look for a batch status equals 0, end of the batch, kick off the batch report. Or maybe you're monitoring run hours on a pump, and when you get to 1,000 hours of runtime on that pump monitored in the PLC or the HMI, trigger a maintenance report and email it to a maintenance person. Reports can be generated on demand from a command line through a URL request, and then distributed in different formats, PDF documents, output the data into a spreadsheet, HTML5, a nice rich web content, emailed, posted to FTP sites, interact with a mobile device. So a very flexible output format and delivery. And what you get out of it are great looking reports really for any market. It could be something very simple like just data going into a spreadsheet, to something very graphical like a dashboard, to a combination of charts and tables and highlighting under different conditions. So very flexible output. You're not limited to this is how your data gets presented. It's really what your needs are, and also very importantly, who are your users consuming this information? Because different users need to look at information in different text in context. So Dream Report lets you be very flexible with that. So that in a 5-minute nutshell is what Dream Report is all about. So let's focus on some of the new and exciting features in Dream Report 4.7. So our main themes of this release is we've really tried to expand Dream Report into newer markets that we have not really necessarily been the go-to product for. Ease of use, and we're getting more and more into kind of ad hoc analysis in addition to our really what we've been known for all these years, for the last 10 years, as a reporting product. So how do we get into new markets? Well, you come up with new functionality. One area that we've seen a request and a need for many years now, I actually used to be on the other side. I used to work for a Wonderware distributor, and we had a request to the Dream Report people years ago. We need SPC reporting. It would be such a great place to do your SPC reports in addition to your other process reports and any other alarm and event reporting. So we have got this functionality available in this release, and we'll spend a slide or two on that shortly. We've expanded connectivity really into all of the, into most, and eventually will become all of the Schneider Electric products. Cytec connectivity, the Cytec Historian and HMI, Yokogawa recorders, they're very specialized devices. So that really talks, is in the, let's talk about the connectivity area. And then OPC UA, which is very important that we have this because this is an internet-ready communication standard. And thinking ahead, whether it's 6 months or 2 years down the line, when the industrial Internet of Things really becomes a reality, OPC UA is going to be that enabling technology for Dream Report to connect to these data sources and then report on them. Ease of use is always a focus in Dream Report, and this release is no different. We have quite a few nice new tools to help with that. The first one is a data model, which will allow you to organize your tags in any format and any structure you want, rename them, and again, we'll see in more detail how this is all used. And it has several benefits. One is if you have huge historians where you don't need to necessarily present all 10 or 20,000 tags to your users, you can create much more organized and constrained sets of tags for your users to look at. And we'll talk about this in more detail. We've updated our runtime management console, our ActiveX control to drop into InTouch, and also added some new objects for the web portals to make browsing for data and presenting data in a web context a lot more user-friendly. And speaking about the web portal, this is really going to be a major focus going forward for us, getting to the data behind the data. So you've got a nice report, you've got a statistic on that report, let's say it's an average temperature during the running of a batch, or a duration in the interval, how long did you maintain a certain flow during a shift. But you want to see what was the raw data behind that single value. Now with a single click of a button, you can click on that, bring up the raw data, look at a chart, output it to a CSV file. So a lot of you focus on more interactive type reporting. But that's not all. Our developers have been hard at work churning out very useful features. As with most of the features included in every release of Dream Report, they're market-driven. While we're called the product's Dream Report, we don't dream up all these features all the time. These really have come from users, end users, systems integrators, distributors looking for functionality that doesn't exist in the market, and so we continue to add to the product. And we'll cover some of these in later slides. So let's talk about the SPC module, which to me is the most significant part of this release. So it is an add-on feature, so you can add this feature to any Dream Report license, whether you have a 50-tag Dream Report for Wonderware, or a 10,000 tag or an unlimited tag full Dream Report with connectivity to everything under the sun. This SPC module can be added to any Dream Report license. It enables SPC reporting against any data source. So we're not a point solution just for a Wonderware historian or a SQL database. We don't care where your data comes from, just like anything else in Dream Report. It could be an InTouch historical log file, it could be a CSV file, it could be a proprietary Eurotherm temperature recorder data that you want to do SPC charts on. It doesn't matter to us. It's just data, and so this now, of course, opens up Dream Report to be able to do SPC charting and reports against any data source. So the SPC module really gives you three sets of features. First of all are charts, and we have given a nice set of probably the most used SPC charts, statistical process control charts, some SPC tables, and a set of about 20 SPC-focused functions, things like upper and lower calculated control limits, CP, CPK calculations for process capability. Now again, I understand SPC is not for everybody. You know, for instance, if you're in the water or wastewater industry, you probably are not doing statistical process control. But if you're in discrete manufacturing or any kind of manufacturing, SPC is typically the foundation for any kind of quality program. So this is really what our target is. So what are the charts? So again, Dream Report is not a comprehensive SPC, SQC quality package. There's some very good products on the market. We never intended this functionality to replace those. What these functions do for us and these features is give you what probably 80 to 90% of plant users want is the control charts, tables, histograms on their reports. So we have a set of X-bar and R charts, standard deviation charts, and histogram data to show histogram charts. We can alarm and highlight based on any of the Western Electric, actually the extended set of Western Electric SPC rules, calculated control limits. So again, all the things you would expect from an SPC package. We have a couple of tables being added through the SPC module. One of them will allow you not to just look at the raw data, but for instance, if you set up a sampling mechanism of 3 measurements per sample, for every sample, it'll show you the measurements, the average, the range, the standard deviation. So a nice organization of the SPC data. A histogram table to show the distribution in a tabular format as opposed to in a chart format. And then, as I said, a set of about 20 statistical functions. I've shown quite a few of them here, calculated up in plus minus 2 sigma, 3 sigma, your CP, CPK calculations. So all of this then can be included on your reports. And one of the benefits, again, of Dream Report is that you can get data from anywhere, and we're not saying this is what an SPC report looks like. You're the artist, so you come up, if you know you've got to do a batch report, and some of the data, let's say most of the data is from your historian, included in the batch report is a section for an alarm and events, which come from your Wonderware alarm logger, and then maybe you've got a lab system or manually entered data that you want to put a control chart for that batch, that can come from there, and you assemble it all together on the same report. The next enhancement or new feature is that of data models to enable and enhance the ability to select and organize your tags in a Dream Report project. What we found over the years, and I'm sure a lot of you who are historian users have found, that for reporting purposes, you probably only use 10 to 20% of the tags for reporting. That's not to say the other 80% are not important. They're probably very important for you, whether they're for regulatory record keeping, whether they're for troubleshooting, trying to figure out what's going on. But for your standard reports, production reports, monthly compliance reports, whatever they are, it's normally a much smaller subset of tags that you're working with. So with this feature, it allows us to build, or you to build your own organization of tags for both that are exposed when you're developing the reports as you're looking for tags when you're building a chart or a table or a statistical function, or for your web users, so they're not inundated with huge lists of tags when they're just looking for certain sets of tags. So you can organize these tags for users. It's important because, first of all, you can reduce the chance of error of somebody picking the wrong tag from a list of 10,000 tags. The chance of picking the wrong one is pretty high. Selection speed's much faster because you're not extracting huge lists of tags. And of course, the tags are organized in a format that's meaningful to your users. So whether you're following, say, an S95 model by plant, area, line, equipment, the hierarchical model, or by some other logical organization of your tags, it's up to you how you want to do this. So to set this up, again, it's a very graphical interface. What you do is you go into our data model feature and you right-click and you say create a new data model. So for instance, tank system 1 or 2, and then click configure. And what we do here then is you just right-click and build up your folder structure. You can name the folders whatever you want. You can drag tags over, drag and drop into whatever folder, and the tags can exist in multiple folders. You can rename tags as well. So right-click, so for instance, the tag from your PLC might have had a meaningful name to the PLC programmer, but to the end user, it might be completely meaningless. So instead of showing it in its original name, you can rename any tag to be something more meaningful. And the other nice feature of this is that you can also kind of create a basic structure, export it, or just click on this configuration file. It opens up Notepad, and it's a very simple XML file format. And now you can copy and paste lists from your historian or anywhere else and really configure this data model very quickly in Notepad and then load it back in if you didn't want to do the drag and drop functionality. Again, tags can come from any data sources. They can be mixed together. It really doesn't matter. Of course, if you've already using a product that has a well-organized hierarchical namespace, if you will, something like System Platform, or taking advantage of Wonderware's public namespace in the historian, you can already organize your tags out there, so you don't have to redo it over here. The benefit of this feature is, one is if you have flat data sources, such as an InTouch tag name dictionary or a SQL database or a CSV file, or if you want to combine data from different data sources into your own folder structure, then we give you that capability here. And then to use it, so that's the configuration. To use it, simply just shows up as a data source. And then in, for instance, an end user looking at let's say this is an ad hoc type report on the web portal, click on production lines, it brings up the folder structure that you've created and whatever tags, wherever they come from, just as if they were tags coming from a specific data source. Okay, let's talk about the ad hoc analysis and getting into the direction we're taking our web portal. So up until now, Dream Report today, driving continuous improvement, looking at reports, raising concerns, meeting compliance needs, reporting needs. Dream Report is the tool for that. It does it exceptionally well, probably better than any other product on the market. It makes it very easy to create and deliver those reports, gives you wide access to history, learning from the past. But it tends to be a static capture of presented in a meaningful format of a set of data. But it's a non-interactive experience. Where we're going with Dream Report now is the tools to dig deeper, root cause analysis, being able to drill down from one report to another, pass parameters from reports, have a much more interactive reporting experience, hyperlink onto raw data views and bring up raw data. And we will continue to enhance this in every release. So let's take a look at the hyperlinking feature. If you have any object on a report, if you want to hyperlink from that, I'll show an example of this on the web portal later on. But we're displaying in a table, let's say a column, and when I click on a column, I want to be able to fire off a different report. Do I want to pass any parameters from this report to the next report? What's the output format of the next report I'm going to do? I want to continue to look at it through the web portal or just drill through and fire off a PDF and have it emailed to somebody? So again, fill in the blanks. We're not programming here, it's just fill in the blanks. The raw data hyperlinks. So in any single data calculation or object on the report, you simply enable this feature, raw data hyperlink, and then when it's displayed in the report, click here. This window will pop up automatically with the raw data behind that calculation. Let's say this was for the last batch or the current batch. Dream Report knows the time duration, extracts the data, click on the little radio button, bring up a chart, hover over an area, and so now you're analyzing and you're digging into the data behind that calculation. And what's getting you? Faster access to knowledge. You don't have to go then to another tool and say, okay, over this time period, run a SQL query to get me the raw data. You've got it instantly just by clicking on that calculation to get that raw data. And maybe you want to now do further analysis in Excel or somewhere else. Go, have at it. Just click on the CSV file button, dumps it out, and now you can work with it outside of Dream Report. We've enhanced and updated several of our communication drivers. Again, this is an area that Dream Report's always excelled. I mean, we have almost 80 communication drivers in the product now. I mean, certainly a complete set for all the Wonderware products, but really everything else on the market as well, and we continue to add to this. The first driver, I mentioned this briefly earlier on, is really not a product-specific driver, but it's an open technology driver, the OPC UA or Unified Architecture driver. This gets Dream Report ready for Internet of Things, and again, you talk to anybody, everyone in the industry has a strategy, has a plan, but no one yet has products, at least not too many tangible products for the Internet of Things, Industrial Internet of Things, or Industry 4.0, whatever you want to call it. It's out there, it's going to happen, it's going to become a reality. There's no way around it at this point. OPC UA connector for Dream Report makes us a great a great reporting and analytics client for these OPC UA exposed data sources. I mentioned we've extended our set of communication drivers for Schneider's Cytec, SCADA, and HMI product, and Historian product, I should say. Wonderware Historian, we've really have this driver as complete as possible for now. One thing we were missing was when you browse for your tags, you didn't see the tag descriptions if you had them in Historian. We now bring those, and this is useful because not only for looking for tags and say building a report, but let's say on a chart I want to have the legend automatically for each tag be populated not with a tag name, but the tag description that's coming out of Historian. This will automatically happen. And some enhancements to some of our existing drivers. And the last one is, I'd call it a very specialized driver. There is a scripting language included in Dream Report called Lua. Some people have never heard of it, others have. It's an open source scripting language which has been in our product for years, and it really lets you enhance the functionality of Dream Report or extend it, let's say. It's an extensibility scripting language. What we've done is written a driver where, using Lua script, you can create your own data sources. Maybe you have certain data profiles that you want to create in a script and build reports against that. Again, this is not for everybody, but certainly lets you take Dream Report to the next level if you're the kind of person that likes to write script or program. So all of those features were on the configuration side. What does the end user see? What are the changes that the end user might be seeing? The first one is an updated Runtime Management Console. And the Runtime Management Console, for those of you familiar with Dream Report, is a nice interface which lets you monitor the status of Dream Report, what reports are running, what's queued, manually generate reports while you're testing. So this has all been updated using the WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation layout. So kind of a common look to a nice look and feel to this Runtime Management Console. The dynamic report generator lets you test your report, say with different time periods. Select a report, change the time period. Let's say I want to generate this energy report for the current quarter and fire it off as a PDF. So while this might be scheduled to run automatically every quarter, I can come into this interface and do this on the fly. The other nice thing about this interface is that it's an ActiveX control. So you can drop that into, say, InTouch. Here it is in an InTouch window. And you can embed Dream Report into, say, a single node HMI/Dream Report system where you might not have a web portal, but you want to give the operators the ability to open a report, generate it, maybe select a batch ID, print a report without having to leave their InTouch application. As an ActiveX control, it's embedded as part of InTouch now. Vertical trends. This is a feature I would never have dreamed of, but we have several customers in certain industries that need this orientation of a trend. Energy management, oil and gas drilling, where they want to, basically a vertical trend is where your x-axis is on the left side instead of the bottom or the right side. So it's kind of a long-running multi-page report chart, almost like a strip chart over multiple pages. So what we can do here when you set up the Dream Report line chart object, you simply say for the chart orientation, instead of default axis on the bottom, now you can put the x-axis on the left and then the y-axis on the top or the bottom. And now you start to get reports or trends that look like this. And again, you can span multiple pages. So let's say this was over a year and you didn't want to squash everything into one page and lose all your granularity. Span it across multiple pages, every page showing 1 month's worth of data. It's very doable. So here we see tag, temperature, and energy usage over time. Or maybe it's an XY plot. This is kind of used in the oil and gas drilling exploration where you want to look at pressure versus drilling depth. So here, instead of over time, it's an XY plot over two different tags over some time period. On the web side of things, again, more options for building web reports, drop-down boxes, combo boxes, check boxes for both reporting as well as for data entry forms. Many people don't actually realize that Dream Report is makes it very easy to make data entry forms where you can maybe take lab samples, visual checks, maybe just a comment that you want an operator to enter that's included with the report when the report gets generated. It's very easy to set up this manual data entry form using Dream Report's what we call the web manual driver. So just talking about some of these objects, and again, we're going to go into Dream Report Studio in a few minutes and look at some of these in action. But the tree object now, when you show a tree in the past, if you clicked on a branch of the tree, you would have a second lookup which would show the tags that were included in that from that branch. Now simply in a single tree object, you can say, when I click on a folder, do I want to show the tags or not underneath that? So it just simplifies the look of your web report without having to have too many list boxes and combo boxes. Tag selectors, again, here's the example of this with it show the tags and now showing the tags right underneath each folder. A combo box, this is an interesting little feature. If you've got lookups, let's say a list of tags from a large historian, and let's say you're not taking advantage of the Dream Report data model where you've limited the number of tags. If you've got several thousand tags, when that web page, when you click on that drop-down, the web page might kind of hang for a bit while it's trying to populate 2,000 or 5,000 tags from your historian. With a simple checkbox, you can say only show the first, say, 200, and then it puts in a little filter screen or part of the combo box, and you just start typing in. For instance, I typed in pump, and now it immediately filters it down to just my pump tags without me having to search through long lists of tags. Multi-line text entry. This is useful if you've got data entry forms, and instead of having a single line that an operator or a supervisor might need to put comments, a nice multi-line with a slider to go up and down. Hopefully you're not requiring your supervisors or operators to type too much in, but that feature was requested. And also for manual data entry, is the tank clean? Yes, no. Checkbox type answers, Boolean answers. Before, somebody would have to put a yes or a no or a 0 or 1. Now we just have a little checkbox object which will allow you to answer that question and record that for reporting later on. And then the last thing before we show the demo, I mentioned earlier on about the Lua scripting. We have this new Lua communication driver for creating your own kind of data sets to work with, as well as an extensive Lua script library for doing anything, interacting with the operating system, executing SQL queries, and working through the resulting array of data. Again, this is not for everybody. Dream Report, as I've said, is on the whole a programming-free tool, but there's always a user who wants to extend the capabilities of a product. The Lua scripting is a great way to do it. And we've got now, instead of just having a single text environment to type this all in, we have a nice little script editor as well to help you with that. So that is a summary, pretty long summary, I think, of the key new features. There's lots of little things. I keep finding little things all the time that I didn't realize we had added, but those are key new features and enhancements in 4.7. So what I'd like to do now is bring up my machine and show you these features in action. So what do I have running in the background? I have Wonderware Historian. You guys should all be familiar with this, collecting tags, collecting data. I have an HMI running. What am I running here? I've got the old InTouch Reactor application, Reactor demo, and it's running batches and generating alarms, all that good stuff. So we have the Wonderware Alarm Logger recording all of this. So a nice mix of data. So this is Dream Report Studio, and again, it's found just by clicking on the Dream Report Studio icon. It brings it up. I'm going to look at an existing project, but typically a new project would come up blank and you'd be presented with this window when you came in. What do you want to connect to? So since we're working with Wonderware data sources, we'd click on the Wonderware folder here, and here we have connections to Historian, to the IntelliTrack database, to InTouch over SweetLink, to the Wonderware Alarm Logger, to App Server. So all the familiar products that you have, we have native drivers for. Very tight level of integration. You guys don't have to figure out how to make Dream Report work with your Wonderware products. We've done the hard work for you. All of these tools were written using Wonderware toolkits, so we expose tags. So for instance, if you were connecting to an InTouch application, which I have one already configured, simply point to the directory where your InTouch application resides, and it reads the tag name dictionary. And it's not even our list here. This is actually the way it would be presented as if it were inside of InTouch. If it were on a remote machine, put in the IP address or the remote, the name of the InTouch node, and that's it. And now you're ready to work with your InTouch application in Dream Report. Or if it's Historian, for instance, Wonderware Historian, let's look at some of the ones I've already created. We expose all of Historian's advanced retrieval modes, so as well as the Historian summary tables. So for instance, if I wanted to do an average, a 15-minute average, for instance, retrieval from Historian, or a one-day integral, maybe it's a daily treatment report, I would choose Historian's integral retrieval mode. I'd set the resolution to be once a day, which is 86,400 seconds, and Wonderware likes everything in milliseconds. And then that's it. So we can take full advantage of all of Historian's advanced retrieval modes, allowing for much faster processing in the reports. But that's not all. I'm sure there's systems integrators on this call today, and you probably are working with other products as well, whether they're GE products, OSI. Again, we try to take advantage of each product's advanced retrieval modes, and any features specific that make those products unique, we try to expose those now drivers to take full advantage of those individual products. So anyway, you've set up your project, you connect your data sources, and now you're ready to start building reports. So I'll start off just very quickly showing just the basics. If you're not familiar with creating a report in Dream Report, it's simply a matter of creating a new report, give it a name. We could call this test daily report. This report is going to be generated every day, or maybe it's a monthly report on the, for instance, the last day of the month, but we call it a daily report. So let's say every day just after midnight, we'll say at 5 past midnight, we want to generate this report. Or it could be triggered on a real-time event. So let's say if we say on a condition, we could maybe point to our InTouch real-time data source, and let's say when the batch status or new batch, or let's say whenever our batch status goes to a 1, trigger this report, something like that. The file format is going to be a PDF document, or maybe I want to also interact with it through the web page, and if it's a web report, periodically refresh the report. So all of that's very simply set up over here. So once you set up the basics of the report, then you go through all your drawing objects. Again, picture this as InTouch Window Maker. Very similar layout, all your drawing tools, your colors, your objects that you would put on your HMI screens. We have the equivalent set, say, in Dream Report. So for instance, if I wanted to get an average value, let's say average temperature, it's coming from my historian. So it's the external data source. I go to my Wonderware historian and I find my tag. So here's my historian folder structure, my reactor temperature, and I want to show the average temperature in my tank for the last 8 hours. It couldn't be easier. Or the current, if it's a month-to-date report, let's say the current 1 month. It's really up to you how you want to do the calculations. How do I want this to appear? I'd like to put a unit on here in degrees Celsius with 1 decimal place. I do want to put a raw data hyperlink on there, so when I click on this on a web report, I can then drill in. And let's say if my average temperature exceeded 200 degrees Celsius, let's just put something like that. Let's change the font to red and bold, something like that. And basically you build up the objects like this. That might be a single data object there. Maybe we want to summarize a set of tags. So, and we'll stop here and then we'll go into the new features. But just to show you the kind of approach to building a report in Dream Report. So this is a special table for summarizing data. So we call it the automatic statistic table. Again, go out to your data source. Let's say I want to know how my pumps have been utilized in the last shift or the last week. I can go to my groups here. Let's find my pumps, and I have a set of pumps there. And for those pumps for the last 1 week, I'd like to know, historian is just logging zeros and ones, stopped and started. But that's all historian's logging for these tags. But I'd like to know in the last week, how many times did these pumps turn on and off? What was the running time, the downtime, and what percentage of uptime did we get out of each pump? And Dream Report does all the math for you. So all the statistical functions are there available to us, to you in Dream Report. For the running time, since it's a weekly report, show the result calculated as a duration in days, hours, minutes, and seconds. I mean, so this is meaningful information. This is actionable. A maintenance person can use this. A production planner can use this. Looking at a trend with 0101, I'm not sure who can use that other than for someone to say, yes, the pump was stopping and starting. This becomes very actionable information. Okay, so you basically build up your report and add all your objects. You can apply a template layout. Let's say you've got a layout that you want to apply to all your reports, and then you're ready to go and generate the report. So that is a 2-minute example of how you would build up a report in Dream Report. But let's look at some of the more advanced features or some of the new features. Our data model, while we're in here. So as you saw under my driver configuration, I have lots of data sources here. I have an energy management system. I've got InTouch. I've got the Wonderware historian. I've got an SPC database. What I can do, instead of me having to go to all those different data sources when I'm building my report, rather come into my data model section and build a data model. So I right-click and say insert a new folder. Let's say this is going to be tank 4. And under tank 4, maybe we'll have a section here for our pumps. All the rest will be analogs. And now we go to our different data sources. So maybe I want to know energy consumed for the agitator. So under my energy data source, I've got an energy consumed tag that I can drag and drop there. For my process data, I might want to go to my historian and grab, I don't know where these are coming from. Let's grab some flows and maybe our temperature. And likewise for the pumps, I can come in here and grab a few pumps and put them in here. So that's from historian. And maybe I've got lab data from manually entered data, and I've got maybe that's not so useful. Some SPC samples from somewhere, and not tank systems. And I don't know why I would want this in my tank system, but let's say I want some lab data included as well. And so that's it. We've now made a organization of tags from different data sources, organized them as I wanted. And this is ST1 flow, doesn't mean anything to anybody, so I would rather name this thing station 1 flow rate. Okay, so now that we've done that, when we're building up a report, let's say I want to pop a chart on this report, instead of me trying to find data from, I'm not sure where this data is coming from, but I know it has to do with tank system number 4, I can just come here and not choose my historian or my InTouch data source, but rather my tank systems. And here's tank number 4, and here is that station 1 flow rate that we just added in. So much easier to find and work with than if you're working with individual data sources and looking through tons and tons of raw data source, or all these tags, trying to find what you're looking for. Okay. I showed you the raw data hyperlink we'll look at in action in a few minutes. While we're in here, let's take a look at a batch report. The same thing on a chart, for instance. This is a batch report against the InTouch reactor demo. In here, when I have this chart which shows my levels and temperatures, I'd like to give the user the ability on the web report to click on that chart and show the raw data behind any of those tags. Okay, very easy to do. So let's jump over now to the Dream Report web portal, which is a great way of showing our data. Certainly if these reports were scheduled, I would just wait for them to generate, but we'll go through a few examples here using the Dream Report web portal. So first, let's just look. Let's say we have a monthly operating report. That report might take 10 minutes to generate because it has to crunch a lot of numbers. So if that report is scheduled to operate, scheduled to run automatically, whenever I come in and click on the PDF icon here, it'll bring up the report instantly. Because the report has already been generated, it doesn't have to go out and grab the data. It's a document that's waiting for me. But what you'll see here is Dream Report maintains a history of all the reports that have generated every month. So let's say I did want to look at September 2015's monthly operating report. There it comes, and it's instant because Dream Report is maintaining that history of documents for me. We could, of course, generate it on the fly using our own time period, set my own date and time, but if this thing is scheduled to automatically generate and all I want to look at is my standard monthly treatment report, I don't need to come in here and generate it again with a different time period. So that's a very typical example of what a user might see when looking at a pre-generated PDF type report through the web portal. This could be done on a mobile device, a tablet. The interface is rescaled and formatted to fit that environment. It's not the same browser kind of force fit into a little phone or an iPad. So that's process data. Maybe you want to look at an alarm and event report. Let's just generate one. There's nothing in this one, so let's go and generate a report. This is hitting the Wonderware Alarm Logger database and summarizing. Here we have in the last hour, so 2 to 3 o'clock. This is summarizing it. We've had 26 of these alarms react to high temperature, and then here's the individual alarms. So a lot of you are probably using the Wonderware Alarm Logger, but scratch your head and wondering how to get data out of it other than using the alarm object in the HMI. Again, alarms are very useful for maintenance people, for process control engineers, but without writing SQL queries to get to it, it's very hard to get those alarms and events in the SQL Server database. We have a direct connection in there, and we have this alarm objects to help you build these reports against it. Let's go and look at some user interaction. So we'll go over now to my batch reports, and InTouch is running. It looks like current batches -27. So let's look at the, let's go and generate, let's look at the last report that was generated, batch number 20. And here it is. It's a static document. It's a PDF document. It's got how long did we maintain temperature. I showed the example earlier on of the automatic statistic table that we're looking at valves, not pumps here. And a chart. What else do we have on this on page 2 of this report? An alarm summary. And also I put a SPC set of objects looking at my flow rates. It's kind of unusual to look at your flows in the context of an SPC chart, but just to show how I'm maintaining my flow rate within an acceptable range. So that's a PDF document, static. I can click on it and nothing happens. Now let me rather click on the web icon next to it. So I've said to Dream Report, I want 2 formats for this report, either a printable PDF or an interactive web portal. And again, it's just 2 checkboxes. And so now it doesn't come up instantly because Dream Report's going out and actually extracting all the data for the last batch and generating this report. So let's give it a few seconds, and up comes batch 27. That's the last batch. My guess is 28 just started. Yep. So the last batch was 27. It started today at 2:40 and ended at 2:45. So again, the same calculations. We maintained this temperature range for 35 seconds, but now it's a web report. I move my mouse over it, we have a hyperlink there. Let me click on that and see what were the temperatures during the running of the batch. Simply click on that. Up comes my raw temperatures from 14:40:45 to the end time 14:45:45. That was the last value recorded. Maybe I want to look at it as a chart. Click on the little radio button, use my mouse to move around, hover in, look at values, save the data off to a CSV file. Okay, so that's looking at the raw data hyperlink. Likewise, we enabled the raw data hyperlink on our chart. So, whoops, click on that, and what data items I want to look at my reactor temperature and level, and Dream Report goes and extracts that out of my Wonderware historian for the temperature and level that are feeding, well actually this is from InTouch, that are feeding this chart. Okay, so there's an example of some of the interactive and hyperlinking analytic type tools that we have on the web report. Let's go and take a look at some downtime reporting. So this first report, actually it's not the report I wanted, but that's fine. So here's an interesting one. If you are recording, let's say it's a manufacturing or production line, and you want to show kind of a timeline of when you went into different states and the time in each of those states, kind of a downtime and uptime report. Very possible, very easy to do that. Actually, the report I wanted to get to was right. So we're recording that things have gone down, but maybe there's no reason behind it. Let's say you haven't automated that it's starved of raw material or a jam or a fire alarm or something in the process. So in this report here, I want to show you the concept of hyperlinking from one report to another. So this is for the last batch, or it's a different batching system, 538. Dream Report picked up these different downtime events and how long each of them were. But we just know the line was down. We don't have any context behind it. So what we'd like to do is have a user enter in a reason for a downtime. So we have hyperlinks here. And what does the hyperlink do for us? Well, let's go back into Studio and take a look real quick at the configuration of that downtime report. So this is a batch report. This is what we call a step table for the last batch. And on the last thing over here, submit downtime reason, we've got some kind of expression. And under appearance, we've said put a hyperlink, internal hyperlink. And what do we want to do? We want to open up a different report called the downtime reason form and pass some parameters over there. What are we passing over? The duration. So basically we're passing the time of this batch report over to our manual data entry form, So a user can assign downtime reasons for each of these events, but only for these events, no other time period. So that's why the hyperlink will pass in my start and end time to the subsequent report. So let's pick up. There was a 45-minute downtime event or an hour-long downtime event there. I'll click on that. Up comes, so that was at 7 o'clock for batch 538. And let's say I put it into manual mode, and Max was the operator. So remember that time, 5:02 at 7 a.m. Submitted. And now we can go back, hyperlink back to the original report, and we should see Max's manual mode. There it is, at 7 o'clock on May 2nd. He put it into manual mode. I guess it would help if we added one last column here, which would be the operator name. So now you can kind of create a downtime tracking system, Dream report and data from your history. Nothing else. All right, let's move along here. SPC charting. Set up an SPC report. Well, this is, let's say, a factor of PVC tubes or pipes, and where this measurement is length, pipe length or height. So in the Dream Report Studio, under the SPC option, this is where we set up our SPC configurations. The tag is coming from some SQL database, but it could be Historian or anywhere, or it could be a raw SQL query, and then put my upper and lower spec limits. What's my sampling mechanism? Is it by time, sample-based? And it's really up to me where or how we configure these. And these upper and lower spec limits can be dynamic based on what product you're running. You don't have to hardcode them. You can reference objects with upper and lower limits. And then to put the report together, it's a matter of choosing whatever object you want. Let's say a histogram chart over here. We'll drop a histogram on. We choose our data source, our SPC definition, our tube height. I want to set my bar range. This is, say, in millimeters or of an inch, 0.2 of an inch, whatever it is, over some time period. What lines do I want to show? The upper and lower spec limits, plus and minus 2 and 3 sigma. I also want to show distribution line over it. Okay. On the next page, I have my SPC samples. And again, just simply tell it the data source you want, the SPC definition, and it'll do the rest for you. So that's it. So here is the report, and of course I could change the time period. If it was a batch-based report, let's say I want to do, it's in a batch environment, they typically call it a run report. So I could then go to my new dynamic report. I'll choose based or job-based, whatever you want to call this, and let's say it's not for the last batch, but I want to look up a specific batch, and from here, Dream Report will look up all my batches. I know I don't have any data for here, and then I will go ahead and generate the report. So it can be dynamic, or just always kick off the report for the last product or the last run that ran. All right, one or two more quick little reports, and then I'll see if there's any time for some questions here. Completely ad hoc. Everything I've shown you up until now have been nicely formatted reports, but maybe you want to give your users just a screen for them to investigate what's happening in the plant, the process. So on your own, you can put together a page, a web page, with, let's say, a chart, a raw data table, maybe some key calculations, and a date and time picker. So now dynamically, a user can come in here and say, okay, I want to go to my Wonderware Historian system, and I want to look at this, say, from, let's say, since 4:30 today up until now, and I'd like to go, or maybe to my, let's actually not go to our Wonderware Historian, let's go to that Tank Systems. And, oh, I didn't save that because I hadn't reloaded. That's okay. Let's go back to our Historian and just simply choose a few tags. Let's go to our flow meters. Let's say those 3 flows. I've chosen a time period and generate this report. So there's my 3 flows from 2:30 today up until now. There's my statistics. I did enable the raw data view, so at any point I can just click on this and then choose which tag I want to look at and pull up the raw data for that tag. So I really almost could have got away without even having this because I can only bring it up if I want to on demand. And then maybe put a button on there, save the result off as a PDF, and now we have a PDF document. Oops, or not. I don't know what I did there. The last screen to show you is an interesting one. People don't normally expect it when I show this. This is turning Dream Report more into kind of a live dashboard. And what we're going to see here, actually if I just jump over to Studio, is kind of a dashboard look. I've just put some picture in the background here, but I have some current values, min-max averages, or live values. I have some, these are our widgets, display widgets, but what I've done on this report are two different settings. I've made it a web report, and I've said for the web report, if there's any current values, such as live levels and temperatures, refresh those every few seconds. Now, we're not intending this to be a replacement for an HMI. There's very good products out there, InTouch Access Anywhere. This is more just you have a couple of values. You don't need at full animation. There's no push buttons and interacting with the system. It's like if you have a big dashboard in the plant that you want to update periodically, this is how we would do it. So that's updating current values. And then if you've got calculations, let's say average over the last hour or OEE calculations for the shift, the whole report can be set, say, to update every 5 minutes. So you won't just see the value change. It actually regenerates the report with all the calculations, and then so you'll see it flicker for a few seconds, and then the report will come up. Actually, we have a nice feature talking about dashboards. We actually have a new version coming out in the next few weeks, 4.7.2, which has a feature called a slideshow, where if you do have a set of dashboards, what you can do in the slideshow is choose those, let's say, 5 dashboards, and say for each dashboard I want to spend 2 minutes on them, and you have a big display in the plant, and every 2 minutes the next report in the sequence will open. It'll regenerate with the newest data. It'll sit up there for 2 minutes till the next one comes, and so it just kind of cycles through them indefinitely until you stop the slideshow. Anyway, back over to the web portal. If you stare at these numbers long enough, they should change every few seconds. Actually, you see the hourglass or the wheel turning. We've hit the 30-second refresh, so now it's regenerating the whole report. But these numbers will update as well in real time. So there's the whole report refresh. And if we look at these, I don't know how much live data I have going on. There it is. That just changed. So without the whole report refreshing, just live values were updated. Okay, I know I've gone very close to 3 o'clock, but if there are any questions, I'm going to unmute the lines. Actually, I'm not sure if I can from here. Has anyone typed in any questions? I'm just looking down here.
The conference has been unmuted. Le mode discrétion a été enlevé de la conférence.
Jason or any of the Wonderware Canada East folks, do you have any questions that have come through?
We haven't seen any yet, Richard.
Okay. Well, we have a couple of minutes, or maybe either I put you to sleep or you're completely all overwhelmed with all this great new functionality and you just can't even think of what to ask me right now. So we're always happy to take questions later on if you can think of things. But certainly we have a few more minutes on the presentation if you would like to ask any questions. Any comments from the Wonderware Canada East team?
There's a question in the chat there, Richard.
Okay, there is. I don't see it.
Does the OS Pi drivers plug into Pi AF or just Pi tags?
As far as I know, it's just Pi tags. It's been a while since it was updated. It's a pretty straightforward driver I can show to you here. Certainly I can check into that. But the driver, kind of like Wonderware Historian, it does expose Pi's advanced retrieval modes. It does require Pi's client pack or connectivity pack installed on the Dream Report machine. So you connect to it, and then just like Historian, it doesn't have as large a range of advanced retrieval modes. But we have those, so let's say they want to do averages every 1 hour retrieval, we can take advantage of Pi's advanced retrieval. modes. One thing to note about that, any Rockwell Historian users, as any of you who are using that, or maybe your systems integrator working with that, Rockwell Historian really is relabeled Pi. So while we don't have a Rockwell Historian driver, you can use this Pi communication driver to get to the Rockwell Historian. But use Wonderware Historian instead. Much easier. Any other questions?
Well, it looks like everyone's pretty shy on the questions. What we'll do is, if you do have any further questions or you think of a question later on, just contact your Wonderware CanEast account manager, who hopefully you know who that is, and we'll get the answers back. We all have this as images on our computer, so we're able to come to your location potentially and demo it as well. So don't be shy. Ask lots of questions, and we'll go from there. Looks like there's some other questions there in the chat. Richard, can you see them?
Okay. For some reason, I'm not seeing them. I don't know why, but so you're going to have to read them to me, and then I'll
okay. Okay, so it's just from the schedule reports. Is it possible to re-edit them and replace the already edited ones?
Well, a PDF report would definitely, that's no, because that's a static document. But if the output format is an Excel spreadsheet, an Excel report, that was one of the options I had up here. What you can then do is after the report generates, you can go in and edit that Excel spreadsheet, and then when you look the listing on the, so let's just say over here Excel, so you would make the output format Excel. When the report generates, it puts it out as an Excel spreadsheet. That, from the web perspective, would look like, so you'd actually have a third icon here if it was Excel, or if it was just Excel, you wouldn't have the PDF. So then it would bring up the Excel spreadsheet. You could edit the Excel spreadsheet and save it, and then that becomes your report. But PDF documents are non-editable. They are static documents.
Okay. I think Bernard had a question. How do you connect to SQL Server?
Okay, great question. SQL Server, there's two ways to do it. The first one, if you are so inclined and you like writing SQL queries, we have a SQL table object, or in fact any object supports raw SQL, that you come in here, you set up your ODBC connection. We have a visual query builder. If you don't know how to write the query, certainly we can help you build it, and basically build up the query, and you can format it, change colors, and you have all the functionality of a SQL in the SQL query as you would with any other data source, changing colors, putting a footer in a table. But that expects you to know some SQL, at least to know where your data is and how it's organized. The other way, much easier, especially if you're a non-SQL user, is to use one of our SQL connectors. So for instance, under the Open Communication Protocol, we have an ODBC connector here. So let's say I had a table that I wanted to map into. Let's just call this batch data real quick. Give it a name. I need an ODBC connection, so I have one already set up, connect. So it lists all my tables in here. So here's a table called batch data. All I need to tell Dream Report is which column contains my date and time. So it reads the structure of that table. So there's a column in that table called timestamp. There's no special table for time. I can add it, and now it's in my list of available drivers. And so now if I want to start building a report, oh boy, I have the wrong license on here, so this will sit. Don't worry about it. What will happen then is I can then browse any column that was in that database table, shows up as a tag. So it's a lot easier. You're not writing queries, it's just tag browsing at that point. But there's one caveat. To use those drivers, you need the full license of Dream Report. Wonderware distributors can sell two versions of Dream Report. Dream Report for Wonderware, which only has the Wonderware drivers for Historian and App Server and all the Wonderware products. And then the full version, which has all of those drivers that I showed you, including the Open Communication Protocol, so OPC connectors, SQL Server connectors. So if you are going to use that mapping mechanism I just showed, you will need the full version of Dream Report. The first option I showed, the raw SQL queries, that'll work with any version of Dream Report. It's not using a special connector for that. By the way, we actually demo that. Sure. On the Dream Report website, we have a video learning link, and we're always adding new videos here. There's quite a few on Dream Report for different Wonderware products. But then, for instance, how to get SQL data into trends and tables, or how to use the SPC functionality. So these are, I think, pretty good references as well if you want to learn more about Dream Report, or as you're doing projects, if you want to add functionality to your Dream Report projects, these could probably help you out quite a lot.
Yeah, there's one other question in the chat. It basically says, let's say a report failed because of a data source was discontinued. Can they re-edit that?
The report failed, meaning because it was disconnected, meaning I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think just the data source was connected.
It was disconnected.
So let's say it's disconnected, then you ran the report, and then, I think what he's asking for is like the manual input, right?
Right. So it all depends where the data is coming from. If it were a historian,
no data in the report.
Certainly. What's that?
It says no data in the report.
No data in the report.
So the report comes back with no data.
Okay. So if the report comes back with no data, chances are that your data source was missing data. So I would suggest, and when I used to work for all the Wonderware side of things, get the data back into your historian or whatever your data source was. So as you probably know, Wonderware Historian allows you to manually push data in through a CSV file or through a SQL insert. If you can do that, then rerun the report, and you can say, all right, I want to go back and rerun yesterday's report or last month's report after I push the data back into Historian. But that really should be done outside, because we're the reporting tool. We report on what's available to us. Okay, so I would definitely recommend you get the data, backfill it, either manually enter it through just a little interface or a CSV file or a SQL insert, get the data back into the Historian, and then regenerate the report, and it'll overwrite the previously generated one. Now,
okay, that sounds like it answers the question for him.
Good.
Is there any other questions on the line before we end the call? Okay, so what we'll do is appreciate your time, and it looks like one more chat's coming in here. Just
okay.
See if it comes in. No, sounds like just some thank yous. Well, I just want to thank the crowd for their time, and again, if there's any questions, let us know. Oh, one question, Richard. Can you connect to an OLAP data?
OLAP.
Did you get that
data. OLAP. So that is a data cube.
Yep.
No, that's more for a kind of a heavy-duty analytic tool like Tableau. Okay. You've got multiple dimensions in your data. That's one level removed from process data. I'd say Dream Report's probably not the right tool for that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys, and we hope to talk to you soon.